It is 7:30, and so I would like to call this meeting of the Common Council of the City of Beaver Dam to order. We will start with the roll call.
Anderson,
Here.
Burnett,
Here.
Burnett,
Here.
Burry,
Here.
Flaherty,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Hiley, Keel,
Here.
Olson,
Present.
Perkins,
Here.
Wild,
Here.
Yutz,
Here.
Zap.
Here.
And let the record show that Alder Hiley called in and is excused. Okay, the next item is the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by silent deliberation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is presentation and possible appointment of District 11 alderperson. I would like to take a moment and introduce, we have we're down to 3 candidates, and we're going to take them in the order that they appear in your packet, which is alphabetical order. And we're going to start with Kim Carroll. So, Ms. Carroll, if you want to come up, and Ken, if you can help her with the mic. So yeah, if you just want to take a few minutes and introduce yourself and tell us why you think you should be on City Council.
Certainly. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me a couple of moments to introduce myself. I'm Kim Carroll of Cherokee Road, and I am here tonight for the Common Council's consideration of filling the vacant seat for District 11. My husband and I relocated to Beaver Dam 10 years ago, making this our family's home. We are raising our 2 sons here, one in middle school and our youngest in late elementary. When our family was very young, we picked Beaver Dam to move to primarily based upon location, as community was a reality for our family. We are pleased with the choice we made and the community of Beaver Dam, as it has offered so many opportunities for our children to explore and grow. So many hours at the city parks, enjoying events and around town. The community theater, sports at the Y, and of course the school districts. All of these are experiencing shaping our lives. Beaver Dam is our community. Through my children's experience, I've witnessed many individuals stepping up to make the community great, and for myself, opportunities to be involved and serve. I left my career to better serve my family in 2018, and I am now completing my 5th year as a teacher assistant at an elementary school. That brings me to why I'm here tonight, asking to be considered for District 11's seat. I've lived in Beaver Dam longer than I've lived anywhere in my life. I chose this community and have a sincere desire to see Beaver Dam grow and thrive. The Common Council offers me an opportunity to serve my neighbors and my city now while shaping its future. While I have no experience working in government, this is also my 5th year as a PTO officer. I've chaired our PTO's fundraising efforts, planned and executed events, and supporting projects while working closely with school administration, staff, and the community. I have been a successful leader in those roles. I've also been a member of a small community action group, and I have volunteered with many organizations my children are involved in, and I attain so much joy seeing those programs succeed. If you talk to those I've worked with, I'm sure you will find I am a driven individual who is a strategic thinker and committed to achieving goals. I've held workforce management positions responsible for standardizing policies and procedures to ensure the efficiency of our department, which was also the hub and filled many roles within the business. I've worked on pilot projects to successfully implement large-scale organizational changes. I've worked with customers, contractors, and senior leadership to find solutions while supporting my team. I am adaptable, dependable, and forthright. I respect the role of city government, this council, the mayor, and our city staff. While typically a publicly elected role, alderman to me does not mean partisan. I do not come here with an agenda, but rather a commitment to collaboration with the council and the city staff. I will devote my time and effort into staying informed about local issues, asking questions of city leaders and of our committees. I will be open from hearing from my constituents, who are literally my neighbors, and always focused on their needs now and in the future. Thank you for considering me for District 11's vacant seat.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Carroll before she sits down? Alders, any? Oh, yeah. Would you mind coming back up?
Yes, do you fly the American flag?
I do not currently fly the American flag outside of my home.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Alder Anderson.
The same question I'll ask everyone. Do you or your family members own a business or work for a business in the city of Beaver Dam?
We do not. I work for the school district. My husband works for a communications company out of Madison.
Thank you.
Alders up.
How would you engage with your constituents?
I have a pretty good relationship just around my block. I would need to send some letters. I would offer Google Forms for opinions and just make myself available via phone or email.
Okay, thank you.
Good. And any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Chris Gansky.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Gansky. I have lived in Beaver Dam, my family and I, for the last 8 years. However, I do have quite a bit of extended family in the area, and they've been in the area for many decades. In fact, it was that family connection that caused us to move to Beaver Dam to have that extended family nearby. My father grew up in the area, and we came to Beaver Dam almost every summer when I was a child. So I'm pretty familiar with the area for my whole life. I have a wife and 3 children. My wife works at Wayland Academy. She's a teacher there. And our 3 children attend St. Catherine Drexel School. About a year and a half ago, I became involved in the Community Action Plan, which later became known as the Hometown Plan, and found that experience to be very rewarding. It was the first time I've been involved in my local community on that level. It gave me the chance to meet many different people that in the city of Beaver Dam that I probably would not have met otherwise. And it gave me a chance to hear their diverse opinions about what the city is today and what it should be in the future. I think that we probably didn't all agree on every topic during the Community Action Plan, but we worked together as a team and we came up with a pretty good list of recommendations for the city council that I think for the most part everybody was happy with. When I found out about the open city council position, it seemed like the perfect next step after being on the Community Action Plan to get involved in the community. And I feel that I have a diverse background of work experience that I can bring to the table on the city council. I was in the Navy for a number of years and lived in many different places. I got to see several different communities in Florida, Oklahoma, and Hawaii, among others. I also got to meet many different people from all over the country and even other countries around the world, and to hear their many different opinions on a whole variety of topics. Separately, I have worked for Clarios, a company in Milwaukee, for about 10 years in finance and accounting. And I believe that background with finance and accounting is also something that's an asset if I were to serve on city council. So thank you for your time and consideration tonight. And I hope that you give me the opportunity to represent my district.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gansky? Alder Yads.
I'll ask the same question. Being a veteran, do you fly the American
I
flag?
do not fly the American flag.
Okay.
And Alder Anderson.
Yep, same thing. Do you or your family own a business or have business ties to someone in Beaver Dam?
We do not own a business. Well, my uncle is a farmer in the area, so he has his farm.
Okay.
And my wife works at Wayland Academy. She works at a local business, but we do not own any local businesses.
Okay, any other questions? Aldersop?
Thank you for your service, Chris. That does mean a lot. Thank you. Same question. How would you engage with your constituents?
So I thought about that. I mean, well, I do see a lot of, I go for walks a lot in our neighborhood, and I do engage with a lot of people through those. Not anything deep, but I mean, I could turn that into a more deep connection. And actually throughout that process, I've actually learned who lives in my neighborhood that I knew already that I didn't even realize lived there. So, but outside of that, I have thought possibly going even as simple as going door to door and just introducing myself, because I think that personal connection could, would be meaningful to people.
Chris,
Good. Any other questions? Alder Wild?
this is a non-committee question. Where were you stationed in Florida?
I was stationed in Jacksonville for a year and Pensacola for 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gansky.
Thank you.
And finally, we will hear from Raymond Handley.
Those are tough acts to follow. I'm a newcomer to the community. I've only lived here for, well, my wife and I bought a home here 3 years ago. Prior to that, we'd lived in Mayville for almost a dozen years. And prior to that, we lived in Milwaukee. We owned a home there. And as urban blight seemed to surround our neighborhood, we decided to leave. And that's what brought us to Dodge County. My wife and I both love the environment here. It's just a beautiful, clean environment, and it's very safe. I've been unemployed now for 15 years. And safety for my wife and I, that security is very, very important to us. And Beaver Dam is outstanding in that regard. We love our neighborhood, our neighbors. We live on MacArthur Drive and in an older home. It's almost as old as we are. And we're facing, needs to fix this and fix that. And we've committed ourselves to keeping to local craftsmen and local suppliers. And we feel that it's important that we do support them. On my experience, I'm a 26-year veteran of the United States Army, a retired master sergeant, and I've had been stationed at Fort Gordon, Georgia, at Fort Carson, Colorado, at Port Leonard Wood, Missouri, at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. I was a military instructor for 5 years, and that's where I learned to speak impromptu. That's why I don't have any notes. So I might forget things. Not having notes means I have to tell you the truth. That's what I'm here for. In any case, in those assignments, I learned to deal with a wide range of people of different backgrounds and different likes and different dislikes, and different political beliefs, etc., and have managed to stay alive. So, in any case, 26 years in the military. I worked at St. Joseph's Hospital in Milwaukee, and I was on the board of directors of the Employees Credit Union there for a couple of years. I also volunteered at Sojourner Truth House and later took a position on their staff. and I was with them for a few years also. I worked with the W-2 agencies in Milwaukee as well. I learned to use Excel. I love an Excel. I just find it incredibly powerful and useful. I have my mailing lists on there for Christmas cards. I send those out every year. And if should I get your address, I might send you one too. In any case, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for for your consideration and would promise to be very diligent in whatever responsibilities I am assigned, if I am assigned to this board. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Alder Yutz.
I'll ask you the same question.
Did I fly the?
Do you fly the American
I
flag?
have neighbors on each side that fly the flag continuously. I have a flag on display in my living room. I don't know that I really need to put one out front.
I'm just curious, that's all. Thank you.
I do brandish retired military license plates on my car.
Any other questions?
Thank you,
Oh.
Alder Anderson. First, I'll give the same thank you and gratitude for your service, and extended service. Thank you very much for that, serving our country.
I wish I could have done more.
Well, this is your chance, right? How would you engage with your constituents?
With my constituents, I'd like to meet them, one-on-one. I have a good rapport with the few neighbors I have. I belong to the Legion and I have, I've been attending their meetings and haven't got to know all of the people in this community that I'd like to know. Of course, we regularly stop in at Chili John's and among other places.
Right.
But it would be my intent to, to make myself known to them door to door if I need to, or certainly by postcard or mail if I, was so inclined. I could do that.
Thank you.
And Alder Anderson.
Yeah, do you or any of your family members own a business in the city or have business ties?
I have owned a business in the past, but I sold it in I believe it was 1978.
Okay,
And that was a Milwaukee camera store,
all right. But that was not in Beaver Dam, was it?
not in Beaver Dam. I
Okay.
have no ties with any business in Beaver Dam.
All right, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Then what will happen next is the clerk and I will be passing out ballots. We'll do an initial round of votes to determine, as a primary, to determine the top 2 vote getters, and then we'll distribute another round of ballots to determine the winner. So does anybody need a pencil?
So, Mayor,
Yes.
shall we just write our top pick? Is that,
Yeah, for this first primary, you're just going to write down your first choice.
okay, thank you.
And again, the candidates' names, in case you're not sure, and your packet is not in front of you. The first speaker was Kim Carroll, the second was Chris Gansky, and the third was Raymond Handley. Oh. Thank you.
I know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. This last time there was a battle for a seat in here. Yeah.
This is more suspenseful than our usual council meetings.
You must be charming, Frank.
Okay, the first round is. Are you ready, Mayor? You ready? I've been waiting for you. Okay, I have 2 for Kim Carroll, 6 for Chris Gansky, and 4 for Raymond Handley. So Mr. Gansky and Mr. Handley will go.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carroll. We appreciate you stepping up. Now, before you complete your ballot for this second round, I have been informed by the city attorney that you also need to put your name on the ballot. That it can be a secret ballot, but you must include your name. We won't necessarily read your names aloud, but I'm not sure why, but it says right there you have to have your name on the ballot as well as the candidate's name. So thank you.
It's just because the statutes don't let you do secret ballots for anything other than the body's officers. So just with the appointment, we have to be able to ascertain who voted for who.
We have 8 for Chris Gansky and 4 for Raymond Handley.
And how about a round of applause for all of our candidates for coming in this evening? Thank you so much. We appreciate your participation. And now, Mr. Gansky, we're going to ask you to come forward, and the city clerk will swear you in.
Bobby, could I say something about the candidates? About the candidates? Yeah, I'm just a member of the council, but I want to say when I read the information from each of the candidates and your presentations, any one of you could have been a very good addition. So thank you very much.
And Alder Gansky, I'm going to have you sit between Alder Zopp and Alder Furry. So you guys help him out if he needs it. Sure. Share your packets, boys. Okay. The next item on the agenda is our informal public hearing. If there's anyone either in the audience here at City Hall or online who would like to speak to council, now is the opportunity. So if there's anyone either virtually or face-to-face who would like to speak, the time is now to come forward. And one last time, if there's anyone either online or with us this evening who would like an opportunity to speak to the council, that time is now. Okay, so seeing and hearing no one, I call the public hearing to a close, and that brings us to announcements. City Administrator, do you have any announcements or?
I don't have any specific announcements to make.
Okay,
but
or Tracy.
just a reminder that next week, the Watermark, there will be the conversation or the presentation for discussing forms of government. So.
Okay, and will you, if you can't make that meeting next Monday at 6:30 at the Watermark, would you just shoot me an email so I know if you're not coming? If you're coming, you don't have to respond. Okay, I just have 2 other quick announcements. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities is hosting a really good workshop entitled Local Government Basic Training. It's similar to a training I took when I first became alder, and it covers sort of all the bases of just things that are really good for either a new alder to know, or if you're a veteran alder, some things that maybe you can review. The training takes place from 2 to 5. There's 2 different events you can go to. One is May 22nd in Platteville. One is June 25th in Neenah. And we do have money budgeted every year for alder education. So your registration fee and mileage would be reimbursed. So if you are interested at all, you can contact me or you can contact Nathan, but I would highly recommend it. And then finally, if you missed the first farmers market of the year last Saturday, you missed a good one. It was a little chilly, but it was pretty well attended. And that will be going on now every Saturday from 8 until noon. And the produce changes every week. It's kind of always interesting to see what's available. And I encourage everyone to check it out. So, very good. The next item on the agenda is the disposition of the minutes from our last meeting on April 21st. Can I get a motion? Alder Burnett?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Good. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Alder Wild. Any questions, discussion, corrections on the minutes as printed in your packet? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, so signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Abstain.
Okay. Tracy, there were 3 abstentions? You got them. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Next item up is our city administrator report.
Just a few items to brief the council or bring them up to speed. One, you'll be familiar that we've been working on the new welcome signs. Todd and Dan have been very helpful in making sure that we've been able to locate the signs and make sure that they're visible. There have been just a couple of adjustments to the location, so I just wanted to brief you on that. The one coming into town on Madison Street, instead of being on the west side by the car wash, it's flipping sides, so it's actually on the east side of Madison Street, kind of the same location on the Quick Trip block. So just an FYI. And then the second has on 33 coming into town from Fox Lake. It will be south of Commercial Drive rather than on the north side of Commercial Drive. The one coming in next to McDonald's, that's going to stay the same. So just an FYI, they're under fabrication right now. And we still have to iron out a few things for the locations. If you do have questions, talk with Todd. He's the guru on that. But we're moving forward. Second, just an update on the fire union negotiations. We have the language finalized by our attorney. It's in the bargaining unit's hands. We had to make a few clarifying modifications, but we're hoping to be able to have that to the administrative committee and the council hopefully at the next meeting. So just wanted to let you know that that's moving forward. And I think that's all I have.
Okay, next item up is communications.
There are no communications this evening.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the bills paid between April 18th and May 1st in the amount of $557,011.51? Alder Zopp.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills as presented.
And a second? Alder Furry? Thank you. Any questions, discussions? Okay, all those in favor of approval of the bills, so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? So the bills will be paid. Next up, I know I am excited. I have a feeling that some of you are as well, to hear from Five Bugles Design about our fire station.
Laura, do you want me to introduce you or are you going to introduce? I think, is there a slide to introduce you?
I don't have a slide to introduce me, but I can, or you
Okay.
can, doesn't matter.
Well, why don't you? You'll give a much better job. They'd enjoy hearing your voice.
Excellent. All right, we all set? All right, so thank you for having me tonight. My name is Laura Eisnagel. I'm an architect for the Five Bugles Design team. Five Bugles Design is a niche service within Wendell Companies. All we work with is emergency services facilities across the country. So police, fire, and EMS. We're located in Eau Claire, and that's where I come to you tonight from. So with that, essentially what we're going to talk about tonight is we're just going to talk about the overall report deliverable, what we were hired to do and where we are in that process. Look at the existing conditions of the existing facility, space needs analysis. So what do we need for a fire station? And then ask some policy questions for you all to consider at the end. So essentially, what we were hired for to do is to do the existing conditions of this building, then do programming, which is space needs analysis, where we go through and we talk to the fire department to see what your needs actually are. From there, then we do some concepts, and that kind of figures out the size, the adjacencies, how big does this facility need to be, what kind of space are we looking at here. After we have our concepts put together, we then create an estimate, and this all gets wrapped up in one big report. And then we would typically have come to you all for a council update. However, once we walked through this facility and then did the programming to figure out what kind of space needs your actual department was requiring, we decided to take a pause and just come to you and speak to you at this point before we move forward with concepts or with a report or an estimate or anything like that, just to kind of have a heads up. We thought it would just be the best use of our time and your time, making sure that we're serving your community the best. So existing conditions. Next slide, please. So this facility was built in 1959. It's had numerous additions, alterations. A lot of work has been done on this facility over the years. It was originally designed as a multi-use facility with just keeping in mind that in 1959, our apparatus were a lot smaller. So our apparatus has grown significantly since then. And at the time, the fire service was a male-dominant industry. There were no such things as female firefighters. All of those things have changed since then. This facility is landlocked. We have streets obviously on 3 sides of this facility and residential homes on the 4th side. So we can't really grow outside of that big yellow box that kind of indicates our property outlines. The total facility is about 43,000 square feet, with about 26,000 square feet for the fire department and 17,000 for the city hall. The interesting thing about those numbers is that it's actually our fire station, the fire department is actually undersized within this facility, as we'll show you in just a minute, whereas the city hall is kind of underutilized, we will say. The spaces and the adjacencies are a little interesting to work through. So when we come to do this existing conditions assessment, what did we do? So we walked through the existing facilities, both as architects. We had mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers with us. We reviewed your floor plans. We drew them all up to make sure that we were seeing what was actually here, see if there's any changes since the last round of documents were created. We had interviews with your staff, many members of your fire department, and with your administrator. And then we consider all of the codes that we need to consider. So the International Building Code, the IBC, the International Existing Building Code, the IEBC, American Act with Disabilities, or American with Disabilities Act, ADA, the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, which gives us a lot of guidelines. And then also just thinking over what is the need of a contemporary fire department and what actually has to happen to make this department function. The next question that always comes with an existing conditions report is, should this or could this facility be renovated to be what you actually need it to be? And anytime you're doing that, we really need to start thinking through, okay, yeah, we want to renovate this facility, but this department works 24/7. So how do we make sure that the fire department can function in this facility during any sort of renovation or addition to this facility, making sure that we do not have it miss in service? Phasing considerations that we have to do are, what are the costs, what are the cost associations with it? Can it be occupied while it's under construction, or do we need to completely relocate? Can it be phased? What is the cost implication of phasing it? And like I said, how do we maintain existing services throughout this whole thing? The other side of that, the last part there, is the egress during construction. So one thing that you'll hear me talk about a lot is the safety of our responders. We don't want our responders to become the incident on the way to the incident. We want to make sure that our responders are very safe throughout the entire service. So essentially, in short, this building is a little bit older, so it does not meet current IBC, the current code. It does not meet the current ADA. It does not meet the NFPA recommendations for health and safety for our firefighters for numerous different reasons. It does not meet the NFPA recommendations for turnout time. It does not mean the interior and the exterior finishes of this facility are well past their usable life. A lot of them have been replaced, but even those, some of those are starting to come past their useful life cycle. And like I said before, it's just kind of undersized for what the fire department actually needs it to be. One thing I did mention in there is response time. So again, when we're talking about the fire station, the fire department, we're talking about seconds. The NFPA sets guidelines for us for how fast our responders get through the station out to their gear, and how fast they get from their gear in their truck to the incident itself. Those things are all measured and they have guidelines throughout, and those are the things that we refer back to when we start looking at how the layout of your facility is functioning. So kind of taking a look at the exterior of your facility, we have significant water infiltration throughout this facility. If you start looking around, you'll start seeing some areas that there's water flooding on the inside. You'll see water standing on the rooftops. There are just some definite flooding issues that we need to be concerned with. So there's some deferred maintenance that we need to consider, like caulking and some exposed rebar. None of these are unique to this facility. This is just part of age of the facility. It just needs to be replaced after time. On the interior then, like I mentioned, we do have that water. So where does that water going to once it gets in? And like I did mention, there are a lot of ADA and non-code compliant issues. Some of them are pretty easy, like that's showing a doorknob. Obviously, we can update door hardware. That's not a problem. But some of the other things are more challenging, like our stair risers are not to code. They are too tall. So if we were to bring this facility up to, if we were to renovate this facility, we would have to bring it up to contemporary code and for current code and current ADA, which some of those could get quite costly, and just making sure that we fully understand and appreciate that. Next one. So these are just a couple images that we took while we were walking through the facility again. So in the upper left-hand corner, just showing that the stairs are not to code. There's a couple issues there that we see as architects. Below there, that is showing a stoop that you can kind of see. You can't have a change like that when you're going through a doorway. It's not safe for people. You could jar your back, get injured. There's a black substance around some of the ducts. I don't know what it is. We did not do any testing on that, but it would be something that we'd want to consider if we were renovating the facility. The dorm rooms are just below that. They are not code compliant. And again, they're not ADA compliant. Things to consider. In the shower room, one of those showers has not worked in, I'm told, 3+ years, and it is already limited facilities to begin with. Again, it wasn't created for multiple genders to live here, so it was only ever set up for just men. So if we have more than just men working in this facility, how do we make those showers function? And unsanitary EMS storage. It's one of the more interesting EMS storage rooms we've been in. There are literally pipes leaking into the facility. So if you can imagine, you have to keep those items hygienic and safe and clean. And we aren't able to do that in this facility just because of some of the infrastructures failing around that area. So again, some of the key things that we really wanted to focus on or look through is just overall it's undersized. Our offices, we are lacking office space. We're lacking some storage space. Our dorms are really, really tight. Our toilet rooms are undersized, apparatus bays. Some of the safety concerns that we have are just how tight your apparatus facility or apparatus bays are. The clearances around our apparatus are not what we would hope for. We do have some personal decontamination spaces built in this facility, but they were not originally meant to be that way. So they're in the wrong location in the facility. They're not ducted properly. And we're doing as good as we can with what we are given. But ideally, we'd like to make sure that those personal decontaminations are great. So again, when this building, 1959, was built, the structure fires that our responders were going to were wood, gypsum, materials that were having impacts on health, but we weren't burning plastics. We weren't burning petroleum-based items like we are now, and our cancer risks have just jumped because of that. So we really need to make sure that we are getting our responders clean when they're coming back from a call. The other thing that we really need to make sure is once they are clean, we need to get their gear clean, their personal protective equipment, PPE. We need to get that clean, and we need to keep that clean. So all these things go into consideration, and we just don't have that space, and we don't have the ability to do that here. I've mentioned a couple times now, obviously it was not designed for multiple genders. The EMS storage, again, I kind of talked about that, how it's just not very hygienic and there's some issues there. The dorm rooms, again, are just very tight. There's a lack of visual and audible privacy throughout the area. We would really want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable when they are living here. The other thing that's really curious about it is the lack of security. So overall station, once you get into one door, you can get into the entire building. We would want to make sure that we can control where the public comes. We don't want the public to get on the apparatus space. Again, it's not safe. So we have to make sure that we have different layers of control to make sure that we can keep them to certain areas. Interesting thing is there's no station alerting. So we were curious why there's no station alerting. One of the reasons is because originally dispatch was in this building with them. So when there was a call come in, they would just say, hey guys, head on out. This is where you're going. Now they have pagers. That's really critical to get that response time down is having stational learning. So making sure that we can do that for our responders. And then just the mental health and quiet spaces. We are asking our responders to go through a lot of really traumatic experiences based on their job. So when we have no place for them to come back and just take a minute to decompress, it's really hard on them. And we want to make sure that we're keeping them healthy, both physically and mentally. So again, going back to safety, one of the other major things that we noticed right away when we pulled up was this response. So we did a little 3D graphic here showing how you have response vehicles and emergency response vehicles driving through a public parking lot to get out. It's completely not safe. It's not ideal. There's a lot of issues that are going on there. And this is one of the things that I think we need to really focus on immediately is how are we going to get public and response separate to keep everyone safe? So the next one. So again, I did mention there's this NFPA, so National Fire Protection Association. They set a lot of different standards. The 1710 standard is the response time for our career fire departments. How soon do they need to get out? So they have a whole bunch of different standards that they have. And if you can click it one more time, please. One of the ones, so you can kind of see here, so the fire turnout time is highlighted there in yellow. So these are all the different things that happen when we have to go to a fire incident. So the call has to be answered, dispatch has to send it out, our responders have to get out to their vehicles, and then we have to get on site. So those two that are highlighted in yellow are specifically interesting for your group because if you go to the next slide, this facility is really long. And one of the things we try and do when we are trying to design a contemporary fire station is making sure that some of those living spaces, like their dorms, their exercise space, their training room, that they're nice and close to the apparatus space. That way, when a call goes off, they can get out there and they can respond as quickly and as safely as possible. Your dorms are so far there, I can't read this, 281 feet away. So the NFPA has assigned times for how long it takes the average responder to walk with purpose, not run, because that's not safe, to get to their apparatus base. So they figured that that's about 90 seconds. So right there, we've exceeded what the NFPA recommendation for that is. Again, the exercise room is 331 feet away. The conference room is about 284, and then the training room is about 231. So basically, all this goes to say is that it's a really inefficient way to get through the station and to get our responders out. Once they do get to the bay, the other challenge that we have is that they're going into the older bay. And again, this building was built in 59. Think about how much smaller fire trucks were in 59 versus now. Our contemporary fire trucks are big engines, big ladder trucks. They don't fit in these little spaces. So they're actually in the farthest bays over. So now they are going around multiple corners, through multiple doors, walking around other response vehicles, through another door, downstairs, and then around the apparatus to get to whichever apparatus they actually need to go to. All those inefficiencies are safety concerns, and it just takes too much time. These are the things that we would want to correct in a contemporary fire station. So, space needs analysis. When we start looking at a fire station, we start with a completely clean slate. What do you need to function? And what we do is we do a guided conversation with our departments where we walk through all the different types of spaces that we see in our fire stations across the country. And what we need to know is how your department works. What works in Massachusetts might not work here. What works here might not work in northern Minnesota. We make sure that we are really catering these concepts to your department. So then what we do is we talk to them about, okay, what you absolutely need, bare minimum. Where are you today? How many responders do you have? And how many are you looking to grow to? This building has served you for 60 some years. Let's hope that your next facility can also serve you for 60 some years. How do we do that? We look to the future to make sure that we are planning this out appropriately. So when we do this, as you can kind of see there, and I'm nearsighted, so I can't read any of those numbers, but I will tell you, the center column has your the center column has your existing square footages, and our 20-year need assessment is on the right-hand side. And as you can see, all of your spaces are undersized, and you can see some of them are significantly undersized. So like I said, that apparatus bay, we don't have clearances that we want around our vehicles. Some of they're kind of oddly sized. We'd want to make sure we really focus on and adjust that. Apparatus support, though, is the one I really want to draw your attention to. And it's because we didn't have things like gear locker rooms. We didn't have things like personal decontamination. There's a lot of things that were just missing in this station. So that's why our 20-year need assessment is a little bit bigger than what you have now. That's why we're saying it's undersized. So when we go to your policy questions then, next one, there are some considerations that we would take when we are thinking through your department and what you need. These are the things that we would consider. What are your response times? How are you getting to the call? Because that's the paramount. What are your site conditions? Is it safe? Is it the size you need it to be? Can you grow in the future if you need to? What is your site circulation? Again, safety, we're always going to hound that. What is your overall function of the facility? Are the right things next to where they need to be? What are your department needs? Future growth? What does it cost to renovate? What does it cost to build new? And then does it meet NFPA? And then for yours specifically, what does the future of the city hall mean? If we have the fire station here, if we don't have the fire station here, what is your future hall? What does your city hall actually need? What size should it be? Where should it be? How should it function? All of those things need to be considered. So because when we programmed, it was so much larger than what we actually have here today, what we wanted to do is a quick, I'm going to call it like a gut check, a quick site test fit to make sure really high level, can it fit on this property? And can we renovate anything to make this work? And my gut reaction right away is that really this facility has served you guys really well for a really long time. But if we were to stay on this property, I'd recommend raising the facility and starting over. And the reason why is because we really want to make sure that we have those adjacencies and that we can actually use all of our apparatus bays and make sure it's safe and consistent. So what we did, like I said, is we did this gut check. The reddish orange areas there in that little concept plan, really big picture here. All we did was lay out your current apparatus to see how does it fit with the safety that we want it to have, with the aprons the size we want them to be. The blue area represents that apparatus support spaces, so your decon spaces, your locker spaces, all of those types of things. And then the yellow is just your fire administration. So what you're seeing here is that our things like our living quarters and our training actually wouldn't even fit on this floor plan the way we have it laid out currently. We'd have to go up to a second floor. But this is the way that we were able to make it kind of fit if we were to use the site again. So going back to the considerations, if we go forward one more, I think. There we go. So when we start saying, hey, you know, your current facility has served you really well for a long time, but perhaps it's time to think about a new facility, the number one question is this building located in the right spot? If we're going to put a lot of money into this facility, and whether we renovate or whether we build new, it is going to be a lot of money. We want to make sure that we are getting the taxpayer dollars the best value that we can possibly do. So is it in the right spot? The second thing that when we do it is, oops, lost my thought there. Making sure that we have the right quantity of stations would also be a consideration that we'd want to consider, and that station location study would also help us do that. And then really start thinking about this existing facility. So if we decide that this isn't the right location for that new facility, because based on that station location study, it says it should be someplace else, what happens to this building then? Should this building be renovated? Should this building be torn down? What would actually go into this facility? So these are the things that we'd want to consider. So the next slide has our questions for our next steps. So my first question for you all would be, do you feel that this building is worth saving? Can a new station fit on this site? And can it meet the NFPA recommendations for response times? And the third one is one station adequate to provide coverage for your district? Or is it time to consider becoming a 2-station department? And those are pretty big questions, but those are the questions that we really feel that we need to do as a group now to make sure that we're really thinking forward how we're going to respond in the future. So that's what I have for a presentation tonight. What questions do you have?
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Or maybe I should say, what question? I know you have questions. What questions do you have? Alder Anderson.
I guess I have a couple comments that are not going to be very popular, but I'll go after them. One, do we currently have any firefighters or EMS that are disabled? You brought up the need for ADA in the dorms.
Yeah.
I don't know if just going out there, I don't know if I want a disabled person working on my EMS.
You know, this is a really interesting conversation, and I have fought this in every single state I've built a fire station in, and that's about 17 states now. And every single one of them says, I understand, I appreciate it. It doesn't matter. You have to build it to ADA. It doesn't mean that absolutely every room has to be ADA compliant, but we have to have a certain amount and they have to be able to get there. And one of the major justifications is, let's say you as an older person want to come tour the facility and you happen to be in a wheelchair that day because you had foot surgery, let's say, and you're getting pushed through. Can you get through the space? You help pay for it. You should be able to see it. And that's what they say. And again, that is out of my control. I can't help that. And like I said, I've tried to argue it in every state I've built a station in, it doesn't go through.
Yep, the next one, which is gonna be even more unpopular, is with showering facilities. I understand they need to be updated. I totally get it. But again, in this day and age, with everything being gender equality, it shouldn't really matter what gender you are. You should be able to share the space. Everyone's got to be equal.
So, yeah.
But I don't need a response for that.
No, I'll just say what we see typically. So what we see typically is that because, back when I started designing fire stations in 2007. And in 2007, what we would have done is we would have done a locker room for men and a locker room for women. And you made the women's smaller and the men's bigger. Well, now we're getting these departments that are no longer equally split between genders, or maybe they are equally split.
Yeah.
So that smaller women's restroom is no longer adequate for them. Or you have departments where you have, let's say, 1 woman and 10 men, and then that woman is left out of the conversation. So probably around 2011-ish, we stopped doing gendered locker rooms and we just made big locker rooms. And then here's a toilet room, just like at your house. You have your shower, your toilet, your sink, and you go in there, you do your business and you come back out. And that's what we would encourage doing, is just something that everyone can use. And no matter what gender comes in and how that flex changes throughout the years, everyone can be there and everyone can be happy.
Okay, so it's more individual
It's more
instead of
individual.
communal.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you talk to a lot of the responders now, the multi-shower heads, they're not going to use them.
Yep.
They will have 1 person in there at a time. So you can put 15 shower heads in there, it doesn't matter. They won't use it that way.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great question though.
the one picture you showed, the outside of the building and they have to go through the public parking lot to go out.
Yes,
You failed to show the other side of the building
yes.
that has all the access out to the road directly. I mean, do we just need to change the way that we're leaving the building?
Unfortunately, you do actually go out both sides. So you have so many apparatus that have to go out for different reasons that
Okay.
you are going out both directions.
Okay.
And the one thing I would say is when you do that, even on the other side, you're still having a public sidewalk that crosses your apparatus apron. So again, it's still a safety issue. The other thing to consider too is that your apparatus bay ceiling heights are rather short. Even in your newer ones, they're not quite short. They're not quite tall enough for us to tip a cab or do any maintenance in. So anytime that you're doing any maintenance on your apparatus, you're actually having to pull that out onto the apron. And anything that's longer than, I think you have 30 feet. So any of your longer apparatus, you have to go over the sidewalk to have it fully out so you can tip the cab to do maintenance. So there are some safety issues on the other side, but this side to me is the side that when we first pulled up, we were all like, oh no, that's not good. That's so scary for me.
And I guess the other one is you're proposing raising this, so we have to, and you kind of started off with this, we would have to deal with what do you do when the system is, I work in IT, so what do you do when the system is live? So you're proposing raising this.
Mhm.
We have to have a plan to have a fire department, EMS, and city hall
Yeah.
live while you're raising the building.
Yes.
So how do you accomplish that?
Yeah, so if we were going to build on this same site, what we would probably end up doing is it would be a long discussion and we would have to put a lot of thought into it. But my gut check would be that you would take down half of the building and keep the other half functional. You'd move in as best you could for the emergency operations and kind of make do, tear the other half down and then build the other side. We have had to do that at other departments. It's not ideal, especially for emergency services facilities. And that's, I guess, one of the things that it comes down to is when we start looking at those costs for renovation versus new construction, you have to consider that because your construction period gets extended. It's a more complicated construction. And is it really worth the money? And again, it comes back to, is this even in the right spot? We have no idea if this is even in the right spot.
Well, to me, there's an additional question of do you separate the fire department and the city hall?
100%, 100%.
So.
Yep.
And then you have to say, if we are going to separate them, is this the right spot for either of,
100%. Mm-hmm.
you know, and then above that, it's, you know, if you're, I think then, yeah, the third thing is, do you need 1 or 2 fire stations, which we already know in the past, they want 2. If the question before us is really, do we want to fund a new fire station and a second fire station? But
And that-
I can tell you, you're not gonna come back and say we need 1 fire station for the city of Beaver Dam. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, so I don't know your response times here. So if you don't mind, can you clip through a couple
Is
of
it
answers?
still
Thank
10
you.
minutes the recommended?
So it's 10 minutes recommended for a volunteer department. For a career department, it's actually 4 minutes.
Okay, so yes,
So
you
my
would
guess,
recommend a
keep
second
going,
fire department.
go all the way to the end. And after the question slide, there is one that just kind of talks about GIS studies and what that actually is.
Well, while we're going through the slides, I just want to make one comment. This was part of the reason why we basically took a pause and we wanted to bring Laura to you all, because it would have been very short-sighted for us to say, yeah, go ahead and produce concepts and not have direction from this council. Like, you can see that there's multiple iterations of directions that we could have gone, and we were pretty firm on only wanting 2 concepts, right? We didn't want 3, we didn't want 4. And so the discussion you're having and the things you're thinking are kind of necessary for us to know and really bring before you concepts that have meaning or purpose. And I will just comment that that's part of the reason for the need for a GIS study, is that will give us more definitive reason and rationale for any concept that Laura and her team could bring forward. Without that, it's almost like we're throwing a dart at a moving target.
Right. Yeah, and so I had Todd pull up the slide here. This is just kind of showing some different examples. And so basically, when you do a station location study, what it will consider are, 3 or 4 different things. So one of the things that it does is it starts looking at, where are all your calls? So we'll get the call data from your dispatch and figure out where you are going. And then what happens is there tends to be areas that have a lot of calls. We call them like a heat zone or heat incident. So those little clusters will start to show up. So we'll start looking to see, like, where are those? Are there 2 or 3 places that we really need to consider because your responders are going there constantly? Then what we will consider is, how long does it take to get from your existing station throughout the district? So we look at it in 2-minute increments. So 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, etc. And we'll figure out what is the percentage. So the NFPA 1710 recommends that you can get to 90% of your calls, or 90% of your district actually, within a 4-minute response time for that 1710, which is what your department is striving to do. With that, is that realistic for your department? We don't know with 1 station. Probably not, because a lot of these departments are bigger. So then it becomes, can you get to 90% of your calls within that 4 minutes? Because maybe a lot of your calls are in one area and we can position your station just perfectly. The next thing that would show is the one that's in the very back there that just goes from green to yellow. Will show the drive time distances. So one of the metrics that ISO looks at when they're giving their ISO ratings for your department is, how many miles does it take to get to different points in your city? And it's not just like we put a dot here and it goes out 1.5 miles and then 2.5 miles. It's actually driving. How many roads do I have to get to point A to point B within 1.5 and 2.5 miles? So these are the 3 different types of maps that'll be produced. We will look through those then with your department and determine what was best for you. If it is a single station, if it is a 2 station, maybe it's a single station now and a second station later, etc. So that would be the station location study.
Alder Wild.
It's like, I just had a comment. My ex-husband was a retiree from the City of Madison Fire Department as a lieutenant. And I've been through all the fire stations there.
Yeah.
And I've been through this one twice. And I guess what really hit me, even though I thought everything was very clean and organized, I was shocked how tight the actual bays were.
Yeah.
And then their area where they could put on their equipment beside.
Yep.
And also their sleeping quarters.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're at this point yet, but it seems to me from what you're saying, you're sort of going to a new station and fixing this one? So we have to, is that kind of where you're leaning?
If you were to do that, like, let's say we were to make, a satellite station. And I guess the GIS would tell us if this should be your central station, or if that should be your central station. If you were gonna have, this is your central station, there are some pretty significant things that we would want to work through. Site safety out here, we have to work
Yes.
through that, whether it's a satellite or central. If we are gonna renovate this facility, then we would have to bring it up to code and ADA compliance.
And could it be?
And that's gonna be the biggest challenge. We are gonna have to, there are some exceptions that we are gonna have to apply for. For one, for example, is some of your ceiling heights in the basement, they don't meet code for occupiable spaces, current code. There's nothing we can do about that. So we would have to apply for an exception for that, but like your stair treads, my guess is that the state will require us to completely remove your stairs and completely rebuild stairs.
But that could be done.
It could be done.
Okay.
But there are things that when you're starting to consider that, I mean, you're basically keeping your outside shell and repairing your outside shell
And still
and
having the outside issues.
and having all those outside issues that we already have and completely gutting the inside and fixing the inside. Because of how much that would cost when we start thinking this through, because of how much that would cost, I would want to do a careful analysis because I think it might be more cost efficient for you all just to tear down this facility and rebuild here if this is the site that GIS says is appropriate site.
Okay, another question. So if we decide to do that, to tear it down and, oh no, I'm sort of lost my train of thought there. Go, I don't know how to phrase this right now, so just pass on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the biggest thing that we have to realize is that renovating this building is going to be expensive.
Yes.
It's not going to be fixing, onesie twosie, just replacing the windows. It's going to be a complete overhaul.
Well, it's
And I
not-
think it's really a consideration you have to consider.
almost sounds like if we end up with two, this should be the satellite station.
Maybe.
Because of all the insufficient, or all the
Yes.
safety issues more, especially exterior safety issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, so when we start looking at a fire station, we do say that 2 acres is a pretty good point. Like if someone's like, hey, like, where are we going? We're 2 acres. This lot is just under 2 acres. So if the GIS said that this was a good location and if we could clean it off and actually get everything on one level or one level and one safe level and by a safe level, I mean, I really would like to discourage dropping down in our apparatus bays. When we go through that, the door from the old apparatus to the new apparatus bays, and you have to go down the stairs and around,
yeah.
it takes time. It's not safe. You can have injuries for a number of different reasons. I would try to discourage that as much as possible.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Alder Fisher.
Maybe not not questions per se, but I do have a couple observations. Having been born and raised in Beaver Dam, I actually remember when when the Sewer Fire Department was being built. Before that, there was a little two-holer down at the corner of Maple and North Spring Street. I mean, I've watched very interested in watching the slide or the presentation that you put on here. In the 16 years I've been an alderman, this issue of Northside Fire Station has come up annually.
Mhm.
Over the years, we've built or we've renovated the current station and stuck a sizable lot of money in it. But everybody, I think the point I'm trying to make is everybody for the last 16 years has agreed that we need something to do something.
Yeah.
What I would do at this point in time would be to think about this. The city of Beaver Dam is about to enter into a venture with a large addition on the north side of Beaver Dam. Nobody at this point knows what that's going to mean. Nobody has come in and said, well, this is what we're going to need for fire up there. And are they going to have their own? Or are we going to have to service it? Plus the fact that we're going to be bringing, with the addition of Generac and this new AI facility, we're going to be bringing people into Beaver Dam. I can see Beaver Dam, the housing has been unbelievable. We need more, but yet we're building and building and building. More people are coming, that's for sure. Over the last 30, 40 years, the move has been out of the metropolitan area, the Madisons, et cetera. And everybody wants to get out to what we consider a better quality of life area, which certainly has helped our town grow. In terms of the businesses and the fire department's responsibility for not only residential, but businesses, we've had gone through a couple of years here back, 5 years ago, where we had some major fires that kind of brought to light, and then everybody again started talking about new fire station, et cetera. My suggestion at this point, and I have a couple questions. At this point, after everything that we've talked about and after all the studies have been done, which we've had in the past, spent a lot of money on people telling us what we need, where are we at this point in time when it comes to who's going to be in charge in the city of Beaver Dam of coming up with the ideas? Obviously, we have a fire chief. Is the fire department take the lead on this? Does the council take the lead? Does the mayor take the lead? Does our city administrator? Where does this stand right now, and who makes the decisions, the preliminary decisions? Is it a joint venture? But even if it is a joint venture, who's going to head it up?
Yeah. So I could probably work with you guys on this question. So typically what we see on our side is that the council typically trusts their fire department to at least start the initial conversations. You all are always welcome to come to any design meetings we have, and in fact, we encourage it, and let the department kind of figure out what it is that they need and how does it function, and come up with a concept. And then what we would do is we typically come back and do regular updates. So if it is, again, if we were to do the GIS study, we would show the GIS to the chief, and then we would come and present the GIS to you all and say, what do you think? This is what the chief is recommending. This is what we're recommending. How is this appropriate? If we like where the GIS is telling us the station or stations need to go, then we would move into concept. And again, they know what they need. We do this all we do. So we would make recommendations with them and make the designs. And then again, we'd come back and present once we have a concept that everyone can agree upon. That concept then would have a cost associated with it. Typically, if the project moved forward, there are several phases of design. And typically, again, we just work with the department, sometimes the administration will sit in on those meetings, or council members will sit on those meetings, but we come back to the council at the end of every phase and do a check-in. Here's what we told you you're going to have. This is where we are in the process. Here's what we told you the price was going to be. Here's our current estimate to make sure that we are on track. And then we ask permission to move to the next phase. So we would do that three times throughout the course of design.
Well, at the end of your presentation, the question that the council and the city has to make before any of that happens,
100%.
and before the chief even gets involved, is where are we going with this? Because you're not going to start your planning without knowing if we're going to be here, if we're going to go to 2, if we're going to, what we're going to do. So how does, now that isn't just up to the police chief or fire chief. He can make recommendations, but yet somebody, this council, has got to come up with the plan as to determine before you can even begin your work.
Yep.
Now, that's my question then, is who is in charge of that? Is it Nathan? Is it the mayor? Or is it us as a whole?
Yeah, so if I can.
Can I add, Michael Stevens here with the Police and Fire Commission. I think with us as optional powers as well, I think we have a standing in this as well to determine with Nathan on how we proceed. It's not just one person, but we are a council of 5 for the Police and Fire Commission. Just to step in here online, I apologize, I can't be in person, but Nathan, go ahead.
No, I apologize to you for not even mentioning the Police and Fire Commission. Obviously, you'd play a major role in this, but does it begin with you? Does it begin with Nathan, or is it you and Nathan together? Or I guess I'm still not too sure where we start.
so if I can just chime in, um, basically this is a capital planning exercise, and we're going to want to make sure that we give you the best information that we can possibly give you. So really the next step, we could have, you'd given us permission to go forward with conceptual plans. But like I had said before, we kind of need better direction, right? Better information makes better decisions. And so we're at a critical juncture where we wanted to bring you guys up to speed. We would like your vote of confidence to move forward with a GIS study so that we can come back to you. As staff can work with Five Bugles to evaluate that GIS study. We'd bring it back to you all for you to make then an educated decision, give us direction of, okay, now we want to move forward. This is the right location. We feel that we need 2 stations. We feel that we need 1 station. Whatever the information comes back at, that's when you'll make a policy decision. At that point, then you're going to come with another question. Well, how are we paying for it? Right? And again, that's where you lean on myself and the finance department to basically come back with recommendations of how we can make this happen or how we can pay for it. The PFC plays a role in operations. They have input on capital planning, and they have input on kind of these larger purchases, but really this ball of wax falls on the city council for a decision. And you use me as a tool or as an assist. I help facilitate that conversation, but ultimately you guys are making the decisions. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question, Mick?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation too.
Alder Fisher, can I just add to that too? I believe you guys remember Jim and Robbie were here for the original presentation. And after we did our programming, Jim approached me and he actually worked with Chief Mantle for a period of time and put a proposal before this council several years ago for a separate study. And he was aware that there was a discussion about a North Side fire station. And so he approached me and said, how do you want us to proceed? Do you want us to proceed with a remodel, with a new facility, with multiple facilities? And to Nathan's point, I didn't feel like that was my decision to make. There's a whole lot that's going to go into that involves the entire council. And at that point, that's when we began having this discussion with Nathan to put something in place so we can give you guys the correct information to make the decision. Because again, that's not my decision to make. I'm not the one that's going to decide financially what the investment is going to be. I agree with a lot of what you said. Is I can do a lot in terms of communicating what we need in a lot of the operational stuff with the fire department. But at the end of the day, you guys are the elected officials and it's your decision. I'm just here to provide you with hopefully the correct information so we can move the project forward. So.
And if I can just add to Chief's credit, this was one of the conversations that we had about, that in the background, there was this idea of having 2 stations, but Chief Wesley recognized we don't have any good data to give you and tell you where those stations should be, whether we actually need the 2 stations. Like this year, we just approved a CAD system, right? The CAD system being basically recognizing the pin drops on the map and the timing. So long story short, a lot of credit goes to Chief. He's been very practical throughout this whole process and recognizes that there's needs, but he wants you all to fully have this decision and understand the decision you're making.
Good. Any other questions? Alder Yeds?
Chief there. How many studies do you have in your drawers for over the years?
Interesting enough, I have studies, but not necessarily pertaining to the facility. I believe, and Todd, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, there was a 2008-ish study that was done across the board for all city facilities. And I believe on that 50-ish page document, there's 1 page dedicated to the fire department. I will add that in that study, I believe the top 5 things that were advocated for have all been addressed except for the fire department. I have documentation of a contract back to 1995 to purchase a plot of land by the shoe factory apartments to build a fire station. I have plans for that fire station. But as far as encompassing study of this magnitude that says this is what we should build, this is how large it needs to be, this is where it should go, I have nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Wild.
From what this sounds like, it's going to be very complicated. We've got the decision to make. We've got some other studies to do. We've got a land purchase possibly. Are we looking at like 5 years before we even get to the point where there could be any construction?
Bingo. And I think Chief came to me right when I got here. And he said, "Hey, Nathan, we could sink a lot of money into the facility, fixing up dorms and fixing up showers and things of that nature. But we really need to make a plan and we need to be thinking about this." And we took a breath. Now, a couple years later, we talked with you all during budget. We said, okay, we need to have a plan. And now we're here. I don't want to steal Chief's thunder, but I think we both agree that this is not going to be something that's going to be done next year or even the year after. But we need to have a plan, because if we have the plan, then we know that, we're not going to throw a lot of money. I call it lipstick on a pig. We're not going to throw a lot of money trying to make this work. But in our conversations, and Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know I'm not wrong. If we were going to just blow by and not do any planning, then it was, well, we need to do something now in the immediate. So understand, we recognize we're very practical. We're thinking about this as a 5-year process.
Yeah, and that's basically what I was going to say is it's hard for me to stand here and make a recommendation without the data. And that's why we had the discussion about the GIS, because I would like you guys to be able to make a decision with the proper information. And to Nathan's point, we've gone back and forth. I think I've been pretty consistent. As the fire chief, I can't tell you if we need 2 fire stations right now. We don't have the data. There's not enough information to make that decision. And so if I was telling you that, I would be lying. I don't know the answer to that question. So it's entirely possible we come back with 1. It's possible we come back with 2. I don't know, I don't know where that's actually gonna end up. But we did want to make sure that we were making the correct decision. So.
Any other questions? Alder Flaherty?
I think if I've been listening well this whole time, I think we can simplify this a bit at the risk of making it too simple. It's about numbers for everybody. We've hired 5 bugles to bring us some information at this point. I don't think they're advocating anything in the way of a plan, nothing concrete. They're giving us options, what we could potentially do. And as for what we could do, well, now we have some options laid before us. And as I said, to bring it back to a central idea, it's about numbers. For the fire department, it's about response times. For us, it's about the checkbook. It's about money. We don't want to overspend because we're passing that burden to the taxpayer, and we know their resources are finite. They don't have unlimited money. So I think now we have a lot of not hard questions, but big questions to ask ourselves. What's our plan going forward? I mean, we could try and fix this facility, but we've been shown the evidence that there isn't a lot here to fix. We've kind of gotten a lot of the goodness out of this facility over the years it's been standing. The real question to me is going to be where to place a new facility. Do we try and do one here? The second station, as Mr. Fisher said, has been discussed a lot over the last few years. It's as town spreads out and gets larger, a larger footprint, that's going to be something we should definitely entertain, perhaps with another study. Who knows if we can financially swing it. So I think going forward, that's going to be what's going around in my head is just numbers, Can we get this in within budget? We know it's a need, I think, at this point. It's just how are we going to facilitate said need?
Thank you, that's all.
Good. Alder Zop.
Do we need a contract amendment if we want to do a GIS study to get the data? I think I'm convinced we need
Yes.
data.
So we wanted to bring this before you tonight. Chief and I both talked about, do we bring a resolution with an amendment to you tonight? And we basically said, no, let's present the data, present the report, get your guys' feel and thoughts. I'm reading the room. I think you guys, there's a consensus that we want to continue or pursue more information. A GIS study, we had originally quoted it with 5 Bugles, but we had amended it in order to address the city hall question. And so I think it's about that $5,000, $7,000 mark. Laura will prepare an amendment, but we'll bring that forward at the next meeting with a resolution for you guys to review and make a decision. But if there are any further questions, I guess now's the time we'd like to hear your any other feedback or comments.
Alder Anderson.
I was gonna ask how much additional is this going to cost, but you answered that. 5 to 7 or 8,000. 5 to 7. Oh, 5 to 7. Somewhere around there, 5 to 7. My second question is can I bid on that contract? Because like I said, I've been here not as long as Mr. Fisher. But I've sat through plenty of meetings where it's the justification for 2 stations has been spelled out. And I can guarantee you, if you do this, if it passes, which I'm sure it will, I would ask that you at least at the minimal, when you do this GIS and when you consider it, you have to take out like the top 1/2 of 1%, because it's going to skew your results. If you look at the city layout and you look at the property lines, you have the Walmart distribution center, which is essentially an island. We played all sorts of tricks so that we could annex it, but it's an island and it's way out there. We did the same exact thing with the new land, the 500 acres that we annexed recently in North. It's way up there and it's for one business. And that is going to skew all the results.
Yeah, so when we do a GIS study like that, if there are other locations, I mean, that's an excellent point. So we're working with a different district located on the Mississippi River. And their district is
narrow
kind
but
of
tall.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also has this one little itty bitty blip that's like on an island. And so we saw that come back and it was skewing everything. It was saying that 19% or what was it? Some percentage, it was like 5 or 6% we couldn't get to within 19 minutes. And I was like, that's skewing everything. So we took that out. So we can absolutely take out areas like that, and that we can work with chief or with whoever else would like to be involved in that conversation to eliminate any of those islands that are going to majorly skew the conversation.
But I can so guarantee it's gonna require to, because our hotspots, and the chief can probably attest to this. He doesn't have to though. I'm not gonna call him out. Our 2 hotspots, if you look at a heat map, are the furthest south and the furthest north. That's what it is. It's the 2 places that require the most calls. So it's going to absolutely require 2. So, but if you wanna flush another $5,000 down the toilet, feel free. I think it's a waste, but that's fine.
I guess one comment I would have, and I didn't have that conversation with Laura, I had it with her coworker Kim. And correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, but with the study, they should bring back the information for, if this is where if we go with 1 station, this will be your response time again. If you remember her 2 to 4 minutes, 4 to 6, all that information. And so they should be able to give us information that will pertain to 1 station and what our response time percentage compliance with NFPA is from that 1 station. Then if there's a 2-station model that's put into the program, they can give us the same information. That information, again, to your point, doesn't just come back to me. We bring that information back and you guys, will use that information to make the decision on if let's say the two-station model improves our response time by 5%. Is that worth the investment? And that's the conversation that you guys need to have. And again, if I come back and I say, I think we should do 2 because it improves us by 5, and you guys don't agree with that, we're going to work within our means to do the right thing. But I guess I don't want you to totally think that we're going to come back and say 2, nothing else, because I don't think that's the plan. And hopefully when we get everything back, it'll give you multiple options. And so that's the whole idea.
And on that too, you can also say, like, if we say we absolutely want a station here, this is the site, we have to have one here. It can say, well, you're gonna have one here, so your second station has to go in X, Y, and Z and run the analysis. There's a whole bunch of different ways that the program can work. And absolutely. I mean, you'd be amiss not to.
So if I can I just add one other comment? If you don't want us to do a study, we don't have to do a study. But the purpose of the studies is not because we want to just spend money. It's data and information gives you justification and helps you be able to tell your constituents, this is the reason why. So we're not making emotional decisions, we're making good and well-reasoned decisions. And so we're always going to, as staff, we want to give you the best information. We don't want to just give you, this is our gut feel. We could, but we know that sometimes gut feels don't carry a lot of water. So
Alder Bonnet.
Well, just this discussion, I guess, when we talk about the number of cases and the locations and the distance and the time, is there any separation between fire and EMS?
So I'm gonna ask Chief, because it depends on your dispatch and how they track it.
Yes. Yeah, so just can you hear me? So yeah, we will have information on whether it's fire calls or EMS calls, and we can provide them with that data if we elect to do the GIS.
And is it typical, and I truly don't know, I mean, for those 2 services to be linked together?
For the data to be linked together or the organization?
Well, for the actual services. I mean,
yeah, so I'm not a GIS expert. I'll start by saying that a lot of EMS calls, just off the cuff, a lot of EMS calls are associated with limited resources. So low income people that maybe don't have other resources to help them out. We're their first call. I would say, there's a certain degree to that with fire calls also, but that might be a little more random. And then associated with that, the type of fire call, where it's located, how it's documented. So a car accident, which is going to be documented as an EMS incident, it's also going to be documented as a fire incident. So we're going to have that information. And those can occur anywhere, and that's independent of things I mentioned about EMS calls in general. So
Are you asking if the departments being together is typical?
well, both.
Both, okay.
Really. I mean, logically, I'm sitting here thinking, does the dispatch of a fire truck is different than a dispatch of an ambulance?
For sure.
And do they have to start from the same point?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting conversation. So if there was something that when we do the GIS maps, if we are able to see that there's a heat zone for fire in one area and EMS in the other, you could divide it like that. Typically here in Wisconsin, you do see them together. There are a couple municipalities that do have independent EMS, so it's just fire. And when you go out to the coast, that is a little bit more common that they are separated like that. But here specifically in Wisconsin, we do tend to see them together. And every department's a little bit different, but a lot of the departments that we work with, for every EMS call, they actually send an ambulance out with it. For every EMS call, they actually send the fire truck out with it. Sorry, it's getting late, an engine. So you have both fire and EMS responding to every call.
from a service delivery standpoint, Joe, to answer your question, it's wise to have these 2 services tied. It saves you money on manpower in the long run.
Yeah, because you can have people that are dual trained as well.
Thank you.
Alder Brunette.
Hey, question for the chief. Do you keep in contact with the fire chief in Watertown?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, we talk.
Do they have a satellite?
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay, they just built a new fire station,
You are correct.
a
Yes.
single station, and it's like about 2 or 3 miles south of the old one. So it's
Yeah,
more
yeah,
towards,
I wouldn't know the exact location, but
yeah, it's more towards the
Yep,
south end
it
of
is.
town. Okay, and that town is bigger than Beaver Dam.
you are correct.
So, and they have just one.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Can I just
Sure.
Okay, the only thing that I will mention, and I'm sure that you can attest to it, and I believe that Mr. Anderson also stated it, is the issue that we have is that we are very tall and very narrow, and that's what stretches us out. If you take a look at, Watertown, it's centrally located, but it's more of a square. And so our problem is geography. We have, obviously, we have the lake, we have the highway, and then we have everything in between, and we're just so stretched out. And that's what provides us, in my opinion, again, we don't have the data, but that is one of the reasons I believe the North Side Fire Station's been talked about for so long, is it's just the travel time from north to south. So.
Alder Wild.
This is going back to Ken's concern about the cost of this study. I don't know when the last one was done. Is it current enough so that if we go ahead with this one, we could reduce some of the costs by using some of the data that still might be pertinent in that last study?
I don't believe we've ever done a GIS study.
There
I
was
guess that answered that question.
the International Association of Firefighters, the local union, I believe at one point had the IAFF do a study. That was a union-backed study. And so that's the only thing that I'm ever aware of. And I don't know if there was actually GIS done with that.
Good. Any last questions or comments? Alder Yetz.
After thinking about this, are we looking at just the city? Or are we looking at the surrounding areas, including the townships?
Yeah, so we've already discussed that. And when I shouldn't say when, if we go ahead with this, we would provide 5 Bugles with all the calls that occurred within the city limits. Only the city limits. Yes, sir.
Okay, any last questions or comments?
I gotta come back at you.
Yes, sir.
Why that demarcation when perhaps we could improve service and cut down our city costs if we expanded to some of the surrounding areas?
Yeah. So we already serve 5 townships in addition to the city.
But we're not, but I thought I heard you say, we're not gonna do the data on that.
The GIS, and Nathan, I don't know if you can put this more eloquently than me, but we had this discussion and
Before you, the council, your primary concern is meeting NFPA standards for your city residents. If we start looking at the township, I'm pretty certain you're not going to meet NFPA. Like, there's no possible way. Like, then you're talking about another or several, and that's not the question before you. And I wouldn't recommend that. I think you need to concentrate on how do we meet the needs of our residents and our citizens, and the townships will benefit. But I'm going to tell you right now, if we went to the townships and we said, hey, do you want to participate in this study and consider, I don't really want to go through that exercise. So no offense to the townships, but we have enough work here to do. So
I think the other thing I'd mention too is that that's a 5-year rotating contract too. So it would probably, I would probably advise against using that information just simply based on that fact, because we could gain townships in some time. We could lose townships at some time. The only given solid thing we know is that we're the Beaver Dam Fire Department. We're going to continue to serve the city of Beaver Dam into the future. So.
Thanks.
I would second that as a Police and Fire Commission member for Nathan and Chief Wesley.
Good. Alder Anderson, one last shot.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The duty of us is the citizens of the city of Beaver Dam. Anything else is auxiliary, and we're doing them a favor. they're not paying for any of the study. They're not paying for any of the building. They're not paying for hardly anything. They're paying a service fee, which is drastically reduced if they had to do anything on their own. So I mean, I'll be more blunt than anyone wants to say, it's for the citizens of the city of Beaver Dam. That's who we need to be concerned about with this study.
Alder Wild.
Just had one more thing to say. I think this was a very impressive study because basically, I don't think many of us know too much about something like this and pretty comprehensive. I'm impressed. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, there is no action necessary to be taken on this particular issue, but thank you for your thoughts. Staff is going to take your input, and as Nathan mentioned, they'll come back at the next meeting with a resolution to approve the GIS, or amend the current contract. So thank you. And thank you, Laura. And Chief, thanks.
Thank you for having us tonight. Have a good one.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, we are on to ordinances.
Ordinance number 4-2025, an ordinance amending section 62-8 and creating section 62-15 of the City of Beaver Dam Municipal Code to allow golf carts on specified streets. This is a second reading.
Can I get a motion? Alder Fisher?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second, Alder Bonnet. And any discussion? I know this went through operations. Oh, that's right. Because this is the second reading, we will open this up for public comment. So if there's anyone in person or online who would like to speak to this issue, that would be the time. This ordinance allowing golf carts on specific street locations. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to that? And for the third time, anyone who would like to talk about ordinance number 4-2025? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Any questions or discussion? I guess we're ready to take the roll.
Anderson,
Aye.
Gadsky,
Abstain.
Burnett,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Flaherty,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Olson,
No.
Perkins,
Aye.
Wild,
Aye.
Yads,
Aye.
Zop.
Aye.
The ordinance passes. Next up is resolution 34.
Resolution number 34-2025, a resolution approving land division of city tax parcel number 206-1214-2224-001, paren 111 Tower Drive.
Can I get a motion? Thank you, Alder Bonnet. And a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Alder Yads. Questions, discussion? Todd, was someone gonna speak on this? I think it's pretty self-explanatory in the packet, but any questions? Alder Zop?
Maybe Todd, you can help me understand, like, is lot 2 the boundary of the existing building? Is that permissible by code? To have a lot that's the exact boundaries of a building?
The map is confusing. Do you know what page you're on, Zach?
80?
I think the map on 83 is better, but a little clearer to understand.
But
All right.
was 80 the actual, that was the certified survey
So-
map, right?
Yeah.
Got the certified survey map up here. So it's somewhat confusing because they outline the existing building here. And they put lot 2 here, but there's actually a leader that goes over to where lot 2 is. So this is lot 2, the piece that they're splitting off. So there's a 0.674 acre parcel they're splitting off, and there'll be 12.5 acres left.
Thank you, Todd.
And I guess just to put that in perspective, that's why I included this aerial map.
So what we're talking about is this piece here. That would be split off. And I guess the long game here is we, about a month ago, we annexed in Power Sports and they're looking to expand their business. So Apache's splitting this off and the intent is to buy.
Thank you, Todd.
Good. Any other questions? Alder Anderson?
So eventually they'll want to merge that with the lot to the south of it.
Correct. So that's the next step in the process.
Yep. Is there kind of like the north and south line? How does that affect that? It must be like a runoff pond or something.
So that remains unaffected. The boundary goes around it.
Oh, okay. So that still counts for.
It would
big
stay with the
building.
Apache parcel. Yeah.
Okay. Is Power Sports gonna need their own?
Yes.
Okay. Can they? All right.
Their drainage actually runs the other way. So they have a pond back here right now.
Oh, okay. So it'll just flow down that way then?
Yep.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions? Alder Anderson?
It looks like the city might have some land they'd be willing to, maybe the water utilities, if they're interested in purchasing some overpriced property.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I think we're ready to call the roll.
Gansky,
Aye.
Burnett, Burnett,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Flaherty,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Perkins,
Aye.
Wild,
Aye.
Yads,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
Anderson.
All right.
And the resolution passes. Next, resolution 35.
Resolution number 35-2025, a resolution proclaiming May 10th, 2025 to be World Migratory Bird Day in the city of Beaver Dam.
Can I get a motion? Alder Olson
Motion to approve is presented.
and a second. Alder Zop.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions, discussion? Can we do this by voice?
No, it's a
Okay,
resolution.
then we're ready to call the roll.
Burnett, Burnett,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Flaherty,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Perkins,
Aye.
Wild,
Aye.
Yads,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Gansky.
Aye.
So the resolution passes. Next up, resolution number 36.
Resolution number 36-2025, a resolution to appropriate a donation from Horicon Bank to the Parks and Forestry Department.
Can I get a motion? Alder Yads
I'll make that motion.
and a second. Alder Furry.
I'll second.
Thank you. And John, did you want to comment or do we need discussion? Enlighten us about this donation?
Sure, I can comment on that. Horicon Bank corporately did an initiative within all their branches over the past year to reduce their paper consumption by promoting e-statements. And they met their goal. And because they met their goal, they donated money to add forestry, to add nursery stock to our program. Very simple as that.
Cool. Very good. Okay, any questions or comments? Then I think we're ready to vote.
Burnett,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Flaherty,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Perkins,
Aye.
Wild,
Aye.
Yads,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Gansky,
Aye.
Burnett.
The resolution carries. And the last resolution, number 37.
Resolution number 37-2025, a resolution to approve a temporary Class B beer license and a temporary Class B wine license to the Beaver Dam Area Chamber of Commerce for Taste of Wisconsin on June 14th, 2025.
Can I get a motion? Alder Flaherty
So moved.
and a second. Alder Burnett. Any questions or discussion? Then we are ready to vote.
Bree,
Aye.
Flaherty,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Perkins,
Aye.
Wild,
Aye.
Yuds,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Gansky,
Aye.
Burnett, Burnett.
And the resolution carries. Next, we have mayoral appointments. You'll see on your agenda that there are 4 different appointments to 4 different organizations. I would hope I could perhaps get a motion to pass these as a slate. Alder Olson,
Can I get a motion to pass them as a slate?
and can I get a second? Alder Burnett? Thank you. Questions or discussion? Okay, then we are ready to vote.
Flaherty,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Perkins,
Aye.
Wild,
Aye.
Yuds,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Gansky,
Aye.
Burnett,
Aye.
Burnett,
Aye.
Free.
Aye.
And the appointments are confirmed, and that leaves. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That was to allow the rule change to vote them as a slate. Now we need to vote for the slate. So can I get a motion? Alder Burnett? And a second, Alder Wild?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And now you're voting on the actual slate of candidates. No questions, discussion? Okay, let's run the roll.
Fisher,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Perkins,
Aye.
Wild,
Aye.
Yuds,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Gansky,
Aye.
Burnett,
Aye.
Burnett,
Aye.
Free,
Aye.
Flaherty.
Aye.
And the slate carries. And finally, Alder Burnett?
Make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.